Hello. Today we are talking about the Clean Energy Jobs Act. My name is Andrew Barbeau with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, and I want to talk to you about a piece of legislation that's moving its way through Springfield that seeks to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy by 2050, achieve a carbon-free power sector by 2030, reduce pollution from the transportation sector, and, at its core, center jobs and equity at the heart of a clean energy future. This may sound a little different because it is. The Clean Energy Jobs Act was developed through a bottom-up process that involved communities across Illinois through a series of 100 Listen, Lead, Share events. It is an inspiring mobilization of activists and leaders calling for climate action and a just and equitable clean energy future. But taking on climate is not easy. Even when there is a will to act, there is difficulty getting action done. Many people, good people, thoughtful and caring people, still see climate as a fight that is just too big. That is a problem for far-sighted treaties and faraway lands, or an issue that politicians and bureaucrats in D.C. must decide. But I've got news for you. We create more carbon pollution here in the Midwest than Canada, Mexico, and Australia combined. If we were a country, the Midwest would be the fifth largest polluting country in the world, ahead of Japan and nipping on the heels of Russia. This is the electricity we use, the cars we drive, the buildings we live in. Guess what? These are all things we have the power to change right here in Illinois. We don't need to wait for DC to change or Trump to have a change of heart. We can take action right here, today. But still the question we get asked in Springfield is, why now? First of all, climate change simply will not wait. And action on climate cannot wait. July 2019, just this past July, was the hottest month in history. And this summer, all 102 counties in Illinois were declared agriculture disaster areas due to extreme weather. We can't afford to keep kicking the can down the road. But there are also issues that affect our pocketbook. Currently, there are Trump appointees in D.C. that are poised to change electricity market rules to prop up dirty fossil fuels, which will result in Illinois customers paying more for their electric bills, as much as $860 million a year for dirty energy that we don't use and we don't need. We are also facing the prospects of a major bust in the renewable energy market in Illinois. Just a few years ago, we passed a landmark piece of legislation in Illinois called the Future Energy Jobs Act, which kick-started the renewable energy industry and for the first time created incentives for rooftop solar, community solar, large-scale solar, and expanded energy efficiency. But that's about to all come to a screeching halt. The programs that we created in that landmark bill are now drying up, but we are still falling far short of even our existing goals and no opportunity to go further. If we do nothing, we will have a renewable energy bust until 2024. Leaving all these new jobs and businesses that have been created hanging out to dry. And finally, there are communities across central and southern Illinois that are looking at the holiday season with a little fear about what comes next. Vistra, which owns several coal plants throughout Illinois, announced that it was closing 4 coal plants in central and southern Illinois in the communities of Coffeen, Hennepin, Havana, and Canton. The question now becomes, when those plants leave those communities, how do we ensure that those communities stay strong and grow? Some of it is about ensuring that their schools or police districts have enough resources, but it's also about helping define a new economic future for the communities where they can thrive and grow and create new careers and attract businesses and people to their town. Any of these issues would be enough to drive action by themselves, but all 4 of them together create an opportunity to think a little differently about our energy policy and climate policy in the state. In order to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy in a just and equitable way, we need to look at this in a comprehensive way. You can't invest in new renewable energy development without thinking about how that investment can build wealth and equity in low-income communities, or help address grid needs in central and southern Illinois as coal plants begin to close. When you start to reduce pollution from the transportation sector, you have to think about how all those new electric vehicles impact the electric sector as well. That's both on the emission side and on the grid side. The Clean Energy Jobs Act is that comprehensive bill. It will put jobs and equity at the center of a clean energy future. It will put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy. It will save consumers money through capacity market reform. It will reduce consumer energy bills through energy efficiency. It will support fossil fuel workers and communities. It will reduce pollution from transportation. It will ensure utility accountability. And it will achieve a carbon-free power sector in Illinois by 2030. But first, let's talk about jobs and equity. Jobs and equity are at the heart of the Clean Energy Jobs Act. In community conversations around the state, this was an issue brought up over and over again, that the growing clean energy economy in Illinois can be a vehicle for expanding equitable access to quality jobs, economic opportunities, and wealth creation. The Clean Energy Jobs Act will result in a direct investment of $2 billion in low-income and environmental justice communities through 2030. That's through several essential pieces. First, this will create an exciting new effort called the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs, a consortium of career pipelines that support people who enter the clean energy workforce, from training and apprenticeship programs to stipends and career counseling. Further, the Clean Energy Jobs Act will greatly expand Solar for All to ensure that all of Illinois can benefit from the growing clean energy economy. Next, the cheapest form of energy is the energy we don't use. So CEJA expands energy efficiency for low-income customers, focused on home retrofits, health and safety improvements, and long-lasting investments. These are things that save customers money, not just in 1 year, but for years to come. We also want to put the community back in community solar, ensuring that at least 25% of all community solar to be organized and directly benefiting the communities they are serving. Finally, as the Clean Energy Jobs Act seeks to rapidly expand electric vehicles throughout the state, we want to ensure that everyone has access to the electrification economy, especially in communities where car ownership is not an option. The EV Access for All program will provide incentives for low-income vehicle rebates, as well as EV car sharing programs and electric shuttle programs to serve transit deserts. All told, this $2 billion direct investment in low-income and environmental justice communities will allow us to lift people up and allow everybody to share in the clean energy future. The Clean Energy Jobs Act sets a bold but achievable goal to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy by 2050. While there are clearly questions about how are we going to do that from the years 2040 to 2050, we do know for certain what we can and must do now. We can get to 46% renewable energy by 2030, 50% by the year after that, and we know how to get there. We get there through an immediate acceleration of renewable energy development to build 16,500 megawatts of new solar and 7,300 megawatts of new wind by 2030. This is enough to power more than 4 million homes. The recent success of the Future Energy Jobs Act has led to the creation of thousands of jobs and tens of thousands of renewable energy projects getting built around the state. But that risks coming to a halt. The Illinois Power Agency says that they're out of money for building more renewable energy until possibly 2024. That means we will be stuck at 8% renewable energy and fall far short of even current law, which requires us to achieve 25% renewables by 2025. We know what needs to be done. So, we will increase our renewable energy targets to create a steady growth in renewables over the next 10 years to get to our new targets. We will need to increase the budget for renewable energy to account for this growth. But we also can use savings from other parts of the bill, such as capacity market reform, to offset these additional costs so customers don't see the rate impacts. The questions here are about priorities, where we want to choose to spend the money that we have in our electric bill. As we develop more renewables, we also need to make the process run smoother. That means improvements to the state's incentive program for renewable energy called the Adjustable Block Program, or Illinois Shines, as well as policies to make interconnection easier for renewable companies. It also means creating more certainty and protections for customers that invest in their own renewable energy and to fix net metering timelines to create certainty and open doors to community-focused community solar projects. As the state pursues its energy and environmental goals to reduce pollution, expand new opportunity, and ensure affordable energy, it must also look at some of the existing structures that push back against those goals. And that goes to the question of priorities. How we spend money on our electric bill says a lot about our priorities. One of those areas is called capacity markets. Capacity now makes up 20% of your electric bill. All told, that's $1.7 billion a year paid by consumers in Northern Illinois. The capacity market in our region was created about 10 years ago when we were in a world of growing electricity use, and the grid operators were looking for a way to incentivize new power plants being built. They created a market that would buy the promise that a power plant would be running at the highest peak times of electricity usage in a year, typically in the summer when it is hot and humid. The idea was to give power plants a fixed payment to ensure they would be around at those hours. However, because of widespread energy efficiency in homes, lighting, computers, and other equipment, electricity use is actually going down, and we have had way more power plants than we have needed. The world looks very different from 10 years ago, but the market never caught up with that. With electricity demand going down and more renewables being built at cheaper costs than ever before, wholesale energy prices have dropped year after year. That's good for consumers, yet older fossil fuel plants with their rising costs simply cannot compete on the wholesale market anymore. So they've turned to the capacity market to make up their lost profit. What used to be a simple market to ensure power plants stayed online during those top 5 hours a year has turned into a bailout bonanza for fossil fuel generators. They will make more than half of their revenue through the capacity market, making money while not running, incentivizing them to run and pollute more. The market is tipped in their favor. Right now, consumers in Northern Illinois are paying more than $1 billion per year to bail out these coal and gas plants. Some in Illinois, in environmental justice communities like Waukegan, and some in other states. And that's poised to go even higher. Soon, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission will issue an order to further tip the scales toward fossil fuels in capacity markets. It will order a market redesign that would say that carbon-free resources, such as wind power, solar power, and nuclear power, will effectively be kicked out of the market, changing the bids of those resources so they can't compete. This rule comes at the request of the coal, gas, and oil industry, who believe that this is a way to nullify state support for things like renewable energy. But when you take all these supply resources out of a market and artificially inflate prices for fossil fuels, it means consumers will pay more. The current estimate is that consumers in northern Illinois will pay up to $864 million a year more under this new plan than what they pay today. Trump has long promised to save the coal industry. It is now clear that this will be on the backs of consumers in clean energy. The Clean Energy Jobs Act, however, does not walk away from this fight. It seeks to find a way to get out of the grips of this fossil fuel-focused capacity market and instead focus on new renewable energy development that focuses on achieving our state's energy, environmental, equity, and public health goals. It creates hundreds of millions of dollars a year in savings, not just from the threat of future costs, but actually savings as compared to today, to invest in Illinois' renewable energy future, jobs and equity, and pollution reduction strategies, all while still saving consumers money. It comes back to a question of priorities, how we want to choose to spend the money on our electric bills to achieve what we want to achieve. Energy efficiency should form the basis of any robust clean energy policy. It is the cheapest clean energy resource, and efficiency upgrades help customers manage their energy bills directly by reducing energy they need and indirectly by holding demand and prices down statewide. Energy efficiency employs almost 87,000 people in Illinois, more than any other clean energy sector, in a diverse range of jobs such as insulation installer, heating and air conditioning engineer, and a pipe fitter. The Clean Energy Jobs Act focuses on making Illinois a leader in energy efficiency in the electric and gas sectors. For gas utilities, the Clean Energy Jobs Act focuses on addressing the significant bill impacts consumers in Illinois will start to see in the coming years due to the recent ramp-up of gas utility spending, and focuses on reducing bills for the most vulnerable. It is expected that the benefits of these investments will save consumers $700 million per year. Again, the cheapest form of energy is the energy we don't use and don't need. How does it do that? Well, the bill requires gas utilities to achieve real energy savings, reducing gas use by 13.5% by 2035, focusing on savings that last over time. This would triple the energy savings of the current gas energy efficiency programs. The bill also requires that the utilities spend a minimum of 25% of their program dollars on low-income programs for those least able to afford their gas bills. The program focuses on whole building investments that reduce heating needs. Half of all spending must be for these things that make a building more energy efficient, not just on appliances. Things such as insulation, air sealing, ventilation, advanced thermostats, and more. For electric utilities, the Clean Energy Jobs Act builds on the success of the Future Energy Jobs Act passed 3 years ago. It extends energy efficiency programs beyond 2030 so that utilities are still incentivized to get long-lasting energy savings. It also increases the amount of investment in low-income programs and ensures energy efficiency programs reach apartment buildings. The Clean Energy Jobs Act also dives into innovative ideas that support those least able to pay for retrofits and upgrades to their homes. The first such program is a health and safety fund, which would complement existing low-income programs and would address issues where energy efficiency contractors have to walk away from low-income home retrofit projects because they discover leaks, mold, asbestos, or other health and safety issues. When we find these issues in homes in our communities, the worst thing we can do is walk away. The second innovative program is the Equitable Energy Financing Program, which is a pay-as-you-save type of program that has proved successful in other states. It allows residents to finance energy improvements on their electric bill so that they can pay off the project investment on the same timetable they are getting the savings from it. Altogether, these investments in energy efficiency support new jobs, help us reach our climate goals, and reduce bills for consumers across the state. One of the core outputs of the Listen Lead Share events around the state was a strong desire to accelerate efforts to achieve a carbon-free power sector in Illinois. At the same time, however, community participants also discussed that it was important to stimulate the economic and environmental well-being of communities disproportionately impacted by the historical operation of and recent and planned closures of fossil fuel power plants. The Clean Energy Jobs Act does this in a parallel approach. First, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency is empowered to develop and enforce limits on greenhouse gas emissions from Illinois power plants to achieve zero emissions by 2030. When doing so, the Illinois EPA would have to work with the Illinois Environmental Justice Commission to develop an environmental justice analysis and require mandatory emission reductions first from power plants impacting environmental justice communities. Those power plant owners would also be required to engage in stakeholder processes to proactively plan for retirement impacts on their communities and workers. Second, the Clean Energy Jobs Act creates a new framework for workers and communities called Energy Community Reinvestment. Energy Community Reinvestment targets new investments into Illinois communities and workers impacted by the closure of fossil fuel power plants and closed coal mines, and ensures that those responsible for the pollution are the ones who pay. To qualify for these energy community reinvestment funds, a community must first be designated as a clean energy empowerment zone, an effort undertaken by the state's Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and an independent board. Eligible communities are environmental justice communities, communities impacted by the shift away from fossil fuels, and others as determined by the board. Communities, school districts, and police and fire departments are eligible for financial assistance from the fund to cover reduced property tax revenue or other community needs for a period of up to 5 years. Further, these clean energy empowerment zones are prioritized for renewable energy development, and businesses that locate in the zones or hire displaced workers are eligible for tax credits. The Clean Energy Jobs Act also directs support for fossil fuel power plant and coal mine workers, creating a Displaced Energy Workers Bill of Rights to ensure advance notice of plant closures, career services, financial planning services, and scholarships for displaced workers. The plant operators would also be required to provide new employment information, 1 year of health insurance, and protections for retirement accounts. The State Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity would have a responsibility as well to support workers and drive new investments to communities. The fund raises approximately $200 million per year from polluters based on their share of pollution in the state, depositing money in a fund that is designed to be available after plants close. Funds from polluters are also used to support jobs and equity investments, including the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs and the Clean Energy Entrepreneurship and Contractor Incubator. The transportation sector is now the leading source of carbon pollution in Illinois, responsible for roughly 1/3 of all carbon emissions. The Clean Energy Jobs Act has set forth an ambitious goal to remove the equivalent of 1 million gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles from our roads. The number of passenger, medium, and heavy-duty electric vehicles in Illinois could grow to approximately 1.2 million by 2030, but only if Illinois adopts a comprehensive suite of policies to encourage their growth. If managed appropriately, electric vehicle adoption will drastically reduce emissions from transportation and could save Illinois residents a cumulative $35 billion through reduced vehicle fueling and maintenance costs. In addition to better air quality and safer climate, Illinois residents that do not use electric vehicles also benefit from greater adoption through lower electric bills, resulting from the greater utilization of the electric grid during off-peak hours. And as the electric grid relies increasingly on renewable energy, the electricity used to charge electric vehicles will grow cleaner. However, any policy to support electric vehicles must ensure that the benefits of the electric vehicle economy go to everyone. Reducing pollution and improving public health are exponentially more impactful when done in communities already burdened by cumulative pollution impacts from cars, trucks, trains, industry, and other polluters. That's why the Clean Energy Jobs Act prioritizes supporting environmental justice communities, low-income communities, and communities where car ownership is not a viable option. In the legislation, beneficial electrification is broken into three main categories: EV access for all, public transit and fleets, and mass market adoption. The EV Access for All program directs at least $7.5 million a year to provide rebates for the purchase of electric vehicles for low-income residents, to create electric vehicle car sharing programs, to support electric shuttles, to serve transit deserts, and other innovative programs to support communities. We must ensure that all of Illinois has access to the benefit of electric vehicles. Next, the Clean Energy Jobs Act will support electrification of medium and heavy-duty vehicles that not only contribute to climate change, but their emissions have a significant impact on local air quality as well, particularly in communities near highways, truck and train yards, and industrial facilities. An average of $25 million per year in incentives for vehicle purchase and charging stations can not only help the Chicago Transit Authority reach its goal of electrifying its entire bus fleet, it can help PACE, Metra, Central and Southern Illinois transit agencies, city and county governments, school districts, school bus companies, and other fleets go electric. Investments in medium and heavy-duty vehicle electrification will prioritize investments in projects that reduce surface level pollutants in low-income and environmental justice communities first. The third core investment by the Clean Energy Jobs Act in electric vehicles is to support mass market adoption. This includes public charging stations, workplace charging stations, fast charging stations along the highways, a rural charging station network, as well as help with home charging stations. While most of electric vehicle charging takes place at home or at work, having public charging stations can help build confidence and allow the private vehicle market to excel. Along with these investments, however, comes an expectation that the recipients of incentives for electric vehicles must also participate in programs that help avoid new costs to the grid that electric vehicles could bring. By shifting charging from evening times when energy use is high to overnight when energy use is low, we can save billions of dollars in grid investment costs. By shifting charging to times when more wind energy and solar energy are producing, we not only ensure the fuel for the vehicles are clean, but we help support the integration of more renewable energy to the grid. Taken together, these investments will support the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of new electric vehicles on the road and improve the public health in communities most impacted by poor air quality and pollution. Altogether, the Clean Energy Jobs Act puts together the essential pieces of any comprehensive energy bill. It centers jobs and equity at the heart of a clean energy future. It puts Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy. It reduces emissions from our transportation sector, and it gets us to a carbon-free power sector by 2030. To find out more about the Clean Energy Jobs Act and the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, visit us online at www.ilcleanjobs.org. That's www.ilcleanjobs.org.